the panel, the topic is challenges and solutions of working with AR. Now, for those that have been here all morning, hands up. Okay, so you've seen the panelists present their topics and present their challenges and their visions of augmented reality across a range of areas. You've got the opportunity now to see how they think about these challenges and what solutions they plan to offer. So I'm going to just go straight into it and put the panel on the spot here. And I'm going to start with a random person, Ross. Okay. Oh, sorry. Well, it's random, like it's the same number. So Ross, with regards to the work that you were presenting, what are you seeing as the main challenge, very succinctly, that you're seeing of working with AR? What's your main challenge that you see out there?
For us, it's kind of what I talked about before of just developers really understanding what is new and what they can do with augmented reality. So building out the first use cases, because there's going to be a lot of kind of short-term demos and the initial gimmicks that everyone's talking about. How do you actually kind of make a long-term compelling augmented reality experience and the kind of creativity associated with that?
Can we get the clock moving?
I have infinite time.
Yeah, don't want to be up here for 30 minutes. We're in a time lock. Okay, so then moving on to Christina. You had the question that you brought to the audience about the definition of AR. Are you seeing a real conclusion about what that definition really is? Like, what is it in your perspective? You didn't give the full answer in your talk. I've given you time to now think about it. Like, what is AR specifically? And I want to start with that.
Yeah, I think the biggest mistake we make at the moment, or the whole industry makes at the moment, is limiting ourselves to having an overlay. Opening camera, having an overlay, and working with that instead of really using everything the world has to offer to change or to implement this into your gameplay or into your digital experience. So I think the best way we could do is just look up the definition of augmented reality and then start thinking from there. So not the definition the gaming industry gave, but just the definition you could look up in every, I don't know, Duden, dictionary or whatsoever, because this gives you a definition in the broadest sense, and I think this is something we have to do. And this is also one struggle we have is in explaining. So we are all divided in all these little subgroups. So and we are always put into one of the groups, even if you're. I mean, if I have to explain what my game is about, it is a location-based, context-sensitive, augmented reality game, and isn't it all the same, or shouldn't it be all the same? Because even talking to publishers, because we're doing something which is innovative, makes up these big problems. The moment you say location-based, every publisher of the world and every money giver, investor of the world will say, oh no, never successful, no. The moment you say context-sensitive, there is a big question mark. The moment you say AR is, so we need to make it broad.
So following on to that definition, Christina, what came to my mind when you're challenging the audience about that definition was, okay, it's more than the overlay from the phone. And so, okay, I get that. And so that started making me think about one trend that's starting to pop up quite a bit at the moment is VUI, voice user interfaces, and Alexa specifically. And Amazon's aggressively out there talking about a games kit for game skills for Alexa. Do you see then that utilizing Alexa or these voice aspects an element of AR? It's augmenting the reality that you're in.
Why not? So yes. So I think this should be the crossover between the digital world and the real world, back and forth. So it is not only that I can see through my camera and then I have the real world and there is something over there, but it could also be the real world influencing the digital experience. So of course voice is an important part of that, and I think it is an interesting part of that.
Okay, so moving on to our Claire and Ross. Claire and Russ. I got it's getting confusing here. So Claire and Russ, like I definitely enjoyed your presentations and like your legends and veterans in the space of gaming and all that. And I define a veteran as anyone that's worked in games from last century, such as myself and so forth. So with the work that you've done, particularly like a range of amazing work that you've done in your career and working with iToy, and I just remember those games as like, they were games initially. They were using new technology, but they were fundamentally designed as games. But you're working with console. Now you're moving into the mobile space, and now you're moving into the location space. What are the challenges that you've seen moving from console over to mobile, over to location, as it appears to AR, and what are the solutions that you're trying to maybe bring from console and your experience there over to the solutions that you're doing now?
I suppose the biggest challenges are, previously we worked on systems where we had AR markers, which always give you a very robust known, and you can hone your technology, so you can, you can have, a very robust pet appear on your floor. You can use the marker to calibrate the space. You can even ask users to control the lighting a bit. So, in a sense, is a probably more secure environment to develop AR in. I think the biggest challenges around, obviously, mobile VR is that all of that's, to the wind. So, for me, the big challenge with mobile AR is to understand more about the world, so that you do have some knowns in the vicinity. So some of the new technologies are obviously looking at sort of like using object recognition, and all those things will help add to sort of like the experience. But really knowing more about the world is where AR will start to really evolve, I think.
So, like, Claire, please.
I was going to add to that when you're kind of innovating in a new space, one of the main things you need to do is to really kind of get it out there and get it mass market, so that people can have it in their hands, so that you can then understand what the actual challenges are. It feels like at the moment you've got, we're experts, yes, but we are still just guessing what the challenges will be. And until we make some games in AR that are mass market, then we will start to understand what the real challenges are, rather than us kind of guessing them. So my ambition is to make a really big AR game that is really mass market, so that we can start learning and then really solving the actual problems we've got.
Okay, so one aspect that you brought up, Russ, I'm emphasizing the words here, is you had markers in the, let's say, early days of AR game experiences that were on console. Today there was a lot of discussion about markerless as well. So what are you seeing? Is that a big change in the way AR development is taking place? Is there, like, what challenges are you seeing between the two?
I guess I think I refer back, and we were very much inspired by AR Toolkit, which was the hero cards, the marker cards. And in fact, we pushed that quite a long way with Wonderbook, because initially we started with iPad because we were learning to track one marker, then we started to work with multiples. But the big difference is, I think, with Apple and Google's input now, is that being able to move away from being restricted to a marker, it just gives you a lot more freedom to kind of experiment and explore the world, which is, is the most exciting part, I think, about now. And also, when you start adding things like machine learning and starting to understand a bit more about the world, the tools seem to be becoming more and more sophisticated to do that. But I think cards were always very restrictive in the sense that you always had to have one. People lose them. They're a physical thing that people put in drawers. So it's quite exciting to get away from that.
Okay.
I think that at the moment we talk about Marketbased AR and Markerless AR, but actually I think Russ raised a really good point. It's about the AI intelligence. It's about us actually having lots of images and understanding the world, and then we can use that to base our augmented reality world on. And at some point we'll move away from having markers completely because for that reason. But AI is an important part of that.
So what I'm hearing, if I paraphrase, is that we're moving from, let's say, a 2D map to a 3D map to a multi-dimensional map, where that multi-dimensions is much more detailed information around the world.
Yeah, and ultimately to a point where we already have that 3D map of everything, so that we can just augment naturally onto it.
So I'm going to ask a bit of a question about, like, from our first presentation this morning from Venture Reality Fund, was presented the investments that are happening in the AR, VR space. And the two largest investments by the looks of it was a company out of Florida, Magic Leap, and then also a company out of the UK, Improbable. And there's a lot of speculation about what Magic Leap is doing, but I think there's a sense that it's has hardware involved, it's got software involved, and just checking their job advertisements, like they're hiring for someone to manage an app store. And so, and then when you look at Improbable, which just recently raised, like they raised 20 million about 18 months ago or so forth, 24 months ago, and then their next round was 500 million from SoftBank. And they're working very much on, let's say, persistence. And so I think, coming to you, Ross, here, one of the topics that you talked a lot about was cross-platform and this idea of like going between devices, having shared experiences and so forth. Could you elaborate more about the challenges that exist with persistence and what you think the real solutions that exist out there, and how that might reflect why a company like Improbable received $500 million from SoftBank, from your own speculation?
So the problem with like a lot of the augmented reality, and then like Improbable isn't directly in the AR space right now. They sell it in their vision, at least from everything that I've been seeing on the ground. They're not focusing on it right now. They have bigger problems to go after. But AR is a really, really difficult problem because you're getting computers to adapt to the real world. So it's not just PCs where we learned how to type, or where we learned how to use a mouse, mobile where we learned how to swipe. It's now getting computers that ideally should really disappear from the rest of the world. So like that's a much more difficult problem, that trying to get these, like, that's why it takes like $1.4 billion, and then Magic Leap is raising again. So then that number is going to probably be over 2 billion for the next year. And then for getting down to like the specific problems to go after, like Magic Leap, I mean, everyone's saying that they're vaporware. I think that they do have some products in there. I don't think that anyone can live up to the hype in the next 5 years that they're going after. But they are trying to build up an entire ecosystem. Like their pitch was, we're going to take out the iPhone, and then like that's something that investors will take high gamble and high risks at. But then it is very, very difficult long-term problems that you're going after. So if you're thinking about like the persistence issue, getting to more specifically your point, like there you're actually building up three-dimensional maps of the world. So it's not just understanding that, oh, you're at this GPS location. It's, okay, here's some 3D object in front of you. In the future, like knowing this is a table, that's like the floor, this is on top of another object. I was talking to someone after my talk on like, okay, you have a hand, you have a plate, and a digital object on top of both of them. Being able to understand these on top of it, like storing that information, knowing it, and building it all up, these are all long-term problems. But the thing is there's kind of two approaches. One is try and raise $500 million or $1.4 billion and try and build up the entire ecosystem, or like take your specific concrete chunks and like do the slow and steady wins the race. So then there's different ways in which to go about the problems. So
I'm going to jump on a comment that you made there, which is about Magic Leap trying to build a whole ecosystem. You've also got companies, and I think, again, in the first presentation, Microsoft, Google, Facebook. Like Facebook has got Building 8, which is this secret building where former head of ATAP, Advanced Technology Projects at Google, formerly head of DARPA, Regina, is heading up Building 8 with the intent to bring out new consumer hardware, new consumer form factors, and they're recruiting a lot of people in the AR space and UX space and so forth.
4 members from my lab.
There you go. And you've got Google, you've got Microsoft, you've got Apple and so forth. And so it leads to the question of like, and this is probably, I think, targeting like Claire, Ross, and Christina, like, are we in the midst of a platform war? Like the development war, or what you actually develop your AR experience or your game experience with? Like, what decisions are you needing to make about how you go about going ahead with your development?
Like, we are in the midst of a platform war over the future platform of how we're going to use it. Like, once you get past AR, it's hard to imagine what is beyond that, other than it getting down to contact lenses and getting smaller there. But the most interesting thing about augmented reality right now is there's a platform war when the end applications haven't actually been built yet. So, like, correct me if anyone knows differently, but every major company is throwing like hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars at augmented reality when, okay, there hasn't really been the first initial kind of nuggets of adoption. So it's kind of this very interesting where everyone's betting on the future of the market, but then it's kind of waiting for everyone to catch up from there. So it's at least a very interesting time that the war is happening, but then at least from our perspective, because everyone's going after this future, which is very, very compelling and it will happen, but they're not understanding what are the developers going after, what are the consumers going to adopt, focusing on those smaller short-term problems. For me, I actually view the problems of what are the next 2 years of augmented reality look like are probably more pressing than what are the next 20.
Claire, Christina?
Okay, yeah, there is definitely something like a war going on, so we don't really know what the augmented reality will be in a couple of years. What we did to adopt in a way is that we approached the augmented reality topic from another angle than what we have seen in the market or the other people do, and now we're a bit cherry picking of, okay, we're combining what we're doing with this and that tool and that amazing thing someone threw millions of dollars onto, which we could never have been able to afford. So, so I think what will be, I think what's really important if you want to be in the augmented reality space in a way and doing products is, or doing technologies, look what's already there, go in a different direction, because we cannot really compete with the real big ones, or you have good funding behind you. And then just we are in this fortunate moment that we can use our knowledge of doing a solid game, of doing a real fun product, throw it out there. And here I need to say I'm really with you. We brought out our game findings pretty early on to just see do people connect to what we are doing and what we are offering there? Do they understand what we're doing? And on the first round, we epically failed. So we strayed in some things off the way and we're doing it spectacularly new. We're not using the typical Google Maps look. We're doing lots of things differently, and it looked awesome. It really looked awesome. No one understood. Really, no one understood. So our first early launch was pretty bad. Or the first soft launch or technical launch, however you want to call it. We pulled it back, we did it completely. Now the people are getting what we're doing and they're liking it, and we're still tweaking and tweaking and tweaking. So I think what you have to do is, if you want to build products, pick whatever your needs are, do things pretty quickly, throw it out there, iterate, throw it out there, iterate. Or pick an angle apart from what the big ones are doing, because you can use this stuff later on and it will have a quality where you start crying because it's so beautiful, but add value to it in a way.
I mean, I think the big companies, they're having a consumer war. I think, you know, you've got Apple and Google are literally they're fighting for consumer money. They want to actually own that space so that the consumers buy their products. But I think if you take a step back from that kind of consumer face, behind the scenes and from a technology perspective, we're all sharing and we're collaborating and we're trying to work together to solve all of these complicated AR problems, because it's going to take lots and lots of minds and lots of people. And I know Google and Apple can build really big teams, but sometimes those big teams in those big companies don't necessarily have the innovative mind when you're working outside of that space. Our experience from Sony kind of backs that up in my mind. So as independents, we can be more innovative. So I don't feel like I'm having an AR war. I feel like I'm having some kind of really good AR collaboration with lots of people, and that will move the space forward.
Okay, splendid. When you look at, let's say, platforms which have come through history and made an impact, one platform that had a huge impact was a platform like YouTube. It came out, it allowed video sharing and so forth, but from that platform it then allowed you to have video creators, like people that suddenly became stars and created videos, and it became mass market. Do you see that, are we near there with AR experiences, the ability for the mass market to actually develop AR experiences, or are the tools too complex at the moment, or where do you think we are?
I at least think we're at the beginning that people can have the ability to make these devices, or to make these experiences. They're on the shorter term right now with mobile, because there's now hundreds of millions as of yesterday that can begin to use it. And as AR Core comes out, I think that it's actually a little less on the tools, because those will develop and then make it easier. But I think it's actually getting onto what are the things that people want to see in AR. Like, is it kind of special effects in the real world? Is it kind of having like Pixar in your pocket style ideas? So I think you can do it now. I think it will get easier over the next like 12 to 24 months to make these experiences, but I actually view it's more on what are the experiences that are going to be driving it.
I agree. So I think it's everything is there. You just have to build it. You just have to do it. And the good thing about game design is designing games is working with limitations. So we all know how to work with limitations. So work with the limitations augmented reality has today, and we can have awesome experiences. So I'm completely in no doubt that we can do really fantastic mass market products. But think on the limitation and stop thinking of AR as this is not an eye candy, and stop this I said in my talk. Build augmented reality into your core gameplay loop. If it is not in there, if it is only another way of visualization, throw it out. It's not worth the effort. It is a tremendous amount of work to make it happen. So either it is in your core gameplay loop, then fantastic, you can build a wonderful experience. If not, forget it, leave it, go home.
I mean, I think as game developers, we're in a unique time when it comes to immersive technology. So I know it's an AR talk, but I've been working in VR as well. And they're very, very similar in the sense that they're utilising the skills of game developers. And we are able to agile and move over to different platforms. We're able to take advantage of different features as they appear in real time. So if AR Core suddenly deliver a deeper level of immersion, we're in a position, if the concept, the main core of the experience is there, to adapt to it. And the games industry does that all the time. Certainly in the mobile industry, you're always responding to consumers. You're always augmenting your game further and further. So I think the skill sets within the game industry are very powerful and bleed out into all sorts of new media for us as developers. So whether that be gameplay and gamification of learning, or even immersing people in brand experiences.
Actually, just to add on that, I do 100% agree with that. Like, the skills that game developers have now, like, as you imagine, okay, fast forward 10 years, like with augmented reality, with all the digital content that's going to be created and then being built, like, the skills there are extremely, extremely valuable, like, moving forward as everything becomes digitized, as the physical world begins to blend in with the digital. So, like, a lot of the gameplay kind of animations, but even like the designs and mechanics, people will be using those in other forms. It will morph over time, but I do actually view gaming is going to be one of the kind of industries that begins to lead it.
So I'm going to open it up to the audience. So questions from the audience. Up at the front, microphone is coming your way. State your name and fire away.
Hi, so my name is Maui from Rook's Ventures, and I'm really curious as to the panel's view on what's the most impressive application of AR, perhaps little known application that you've seen, and if you haven't seen anything, what would you, apart from things you're working on, that is, and and if you haven't seen anything impressive, sufficiently impressive, what would you like someone to create that you haven't seen yet?
I think something I would really like to see is to be able to walk. I mean, it's not dissimilar to the ambition we're trying to go for, which is to walk down the street and to feel like I can actually play the game as I'm moving along, and I can see things that I can't see now. But once I've done that, I've then gone home, and I've still got everything with me, so it still all persists, so that I can continue to play it at home. And the technology's not there for that yet, but it's feeling like you've got characters that are with you all the time. So there's a lot of work being done in kind of interactive theatre at the moment, kind of where you actually walk around a house and the characters, the actors are playing along and you interact with them. When we can get to that kind of point in AR, and that can happen in the space when I'm walking to work where it's a bit boring, or I'm sitting at home and I want to interact, then I think that could be really, really cool. But that's not something I've seen yet, but it's something I would definitely like.
This is pretty interesting because my vision of AR is a bit, or goes directly in the direction what you see in all the science fiction movies. You're walking around and you see the whole world with more and more and more layers, and these layers only present you the stuff which really interests you. And this is so. That was our niche a bit, where we started off. That we started with the data side of this augmented reality vision, because we knew so many people are working on the overlays and object recognition and stuff, that we thought, okay, we start from the data side, that we know the stuff and that we can tell you only the stuff you want to know in the certain context you are in, and combining this later on with the very, very awesome visuals others provide for us. So I think I'm in the same direction than you are. I think this is what science fiction movies showed us for ages now, is exactly that, what we are going for.
So to get to like the initial use cases, so coming from like your venture background, I mean, they're probably more from the like indirect applications on the enterprise side, and the consumer is going to be finding out what goes viral versus not. And then like having just made through the rounds in Silicon Valley, the number of investors of like, yeah, I turned down Instagram because I thought it was stupid. So like predicting virality is very, very difficult. And then even you can design for it, try for it, but at the end of the day, it's a little bit of a dice roll. I personally think taking one step back away from gaming for like the first killer app of headsets is actually get to the developer experience, and actually like I would put on like a HoloLens and then have an infinitely wide computer screen. So I actually think computer screens are going to be the first killer app of headsets, because okay, you're already buying thousands of dollars of monitors, you're stacking like 5 or 6 of them up. Why not just put one device on your head and see as wide of a monitor as you want?
One of the most interesting AR apps, and I actually saw this probably about 8 years ago, and it was actually in Sweden, was using just a Nokia handset and having Zigbee sensors in the walls and using it to measure the humidity in the walls for water leak detection. And basically you'd just move your phone and look at the walls, and you'd actually have a nice rendering of the temperature, the humidity, so you could see the leak detection. It was just such a powerful experience. You didn't have to knock out the wall to find out where the leak was and so forth. And so just very simple utility applications that suddenly use AR for something very, very practical and very quickly. Other questions from the audience? State your name, fire away.
I'm Denis, and our company is a VR developer, and also we are now thinking about AR and what we can do for AR. And I have a question which is more about these challenges of AR, and one is the regulations which might be connected with AR applications, for example, safety and such kind of things. Because now, for example, various toys for children, they come with lots of warnings about how to play safely, not to put the package of these toys on your head to avoid suffocation and such kind of things. So, in case someday children will go, outside with AR applications and will, catch Pokemons in some inappropriate places, for example, or there will be a chance that they can be hit by the car on the road, for example, if they go play somewhere outside the house. So can it be so that AR applications will be regulated too much, and there will be some probably restrictions which we will have to put inside the game, like not to play outside near the roads and such kind of things? So what you are thinking about that?
We had a lot of experience with kids' games with iPad. Not obviously iPad was just within the home, but even in the home, we had to think of lots of considerations when it comes to children. My advice would be to do a lot of research and to really, really understand the existing regulation. I'm not sure whether they're going to put additional regulation on just because it's augmented reality, because they haven't done that so far. My experience is that there's already a lot of regulation when you deal with children and in terms of what you can and can't do with computer games. So I'd get very knowledgeable about that if you're thinking of doing kid-based AR.
Okay, so I think we're coming to the end of the panel, but I'll ask each of the panelists to fire off very succinctly what they consider to be the most exciting solution in AR that they're working with at the moment, and we'll close with that.
Multiplayer.
I would say artificial intelligence in terms of being able to see the world and learn from images you collect.
I think being clever in what to combine with what.
I think it's seeing the games industry take on new challenges and revive itself and do new things.
Lovely. Let's thank our panel and take it from there.